Welcome back to the Brokest Guy in Your Room. This is your host, Chris Kushner. I'm ecstatic to have these two gentlemen here with me, Gavin and Sean. We met through a chance occurrence at a place called The Lawn here in Bali. I tend to be somebody who's always looking at, I always got my eyes open everywhere around me because I don't believe in chance occurrences. So chances are the person that you need to accomplish just what you want might sit down right next to you. That's happened to me here in frequency in Bali ever since I really started to become aware of this. So I saw Gavin kind of walking by at the lawn, and typically you got to reserve a seat. I had this little table, I had an extra seat. Saw he didn't have a place to sit, invited him to sit down, and from the moment he sat down, we start talking and realized we got a whole lot in common, coming from two different parts of the world. And then he starts telling me about Sean, who also has a whole lot in common. Everything from us being young college dropouts who chased their dreams, started a company. These guys were crazy enough to move to a different country, which is even beyond me. And Gavin found his way in hair care, Sean in fitness. Sean happens to be a type 1 diabetic, and so we've got a bit of a thing there because I struggle with Crohn's disease, and fitness and yoga in particular, in my case, really made the difference. But yeah, I don't know which one of you guys wants to go first, but kind of tell your story. And
Okay, awesome. So, you know what? I'll start off with type 1 diabetes because obviously, that's something you mentioned is something that we have in common. You've Crohn's disease. I'm a type 1 diabetic. So, I'm from Ireland, first of all. My name is Sean Coffey. For those that don't know, I do social media. I do online coaching. I've been in the gym 5 years. And what's kind of kickstarted all of this, tying it back to type 1 diabetes, is type 1 diabetes itself. So I was 11 years old. At the time, I was getting bullied in school quite a bit. And, doctors kind of think that that's what actually triggered off my type 1 diabetes as well. So anyways, diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic at 11. From there, I knew that I could go into this with two different mentalities. It could either be that, I feel sorry for myself. I just feel like the world's coming for me, and I just, feel bad for myself. And I said, you know what, fuck that now. I choose the other option. And that other option was actually just using that to my advantage, using that as my superpower, and making sure that I still make an impact with type 1 diabetes in this world and help other type 1 diabetics do the exact same. So that's kind of what started me off. And then one thing led to another. Started doing social media in and around 14, 15. That's when I started doing my fitness page. And from there, just stay consistent. And here we are now in Bali a couple of years later. So crazy how things work out.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I had something similar enough to Sean. My name's Gavin Heffero. I'm 20. I'm from Dublin in Ireland. And I went through a bit of bullying myself in school, as a lot of young entrepreneurs and creatives do. I really, really enjoyed creating content as a kid. I started creating my first YouTube videos when I was 9, 10, built up a bit of a following with that. And for those of you who aren't from Ireland, secondary school can be quite brutal. I think high school can be similar in America. Particularly, I think Irish kids can be very, very cruel. So I was picked on and, ostracized a bit in school. And it was really, really tough at the time. It ended up being the biggest blessing in disguise ever, because anything else I've done in my life, whether it was when I went into cutting hair and then eventually founding Poseidon Hair, I was never, ever, ever afraid to push the boat out. So just like how Sean's type 1 diabetes was his blessing in disguise, that was really it for me. Being, made fun of for creating the YouTube videos that I did really gave me the confidence to do anything I want. And now, if there was anything I ever wanted to start, I'd have absolutely zero fear whatsoever.
Yeah, it's definitely that's a really interesting thing right off the get-go that we all had in common. I got picked on a lot too, up until a point. It was really 6th grade was kind of the year that everything changed for me. Up until that point, I was short, fat, had zero confidence. And then on a whim day, I got this assignment for Miss Planetcheck. If you're watching, I'll never forget you for this. But she had us write a poem. I'm like, oh, great, short fat kid's gonna write poetry now. This is gonna go over real well. But actually, I had a knack for it, and I scribbled something out in about 5 minutes. Was ready to walk out the door. She hands it back to me and says it's not done. I protested because I was like, it's already better than everybody else. She was like, that's the point, go finish it. Well, that poem ended up getting published, and I ended up getting an opportunity to read it at Disneyland in California, which was crazy. They say you'll never get famous in your own backyard. So for the next few years, I would be reading at these poetry slams, and for one weekend a month, or one weekend a year, I was like famous. And then I'd come back and have to fall right back into that old skin. And it's a bit of a mind trip, a duality that's kind of become somewhat of a theme in my life. What's really kind of fascinating about that, you touched on something that's been you both did actually, and that's finding gratitude for the tragedies. You know, I've come to really understand that some of the most beautiful blessings in our life come in the form of some of the darkest tragedies. Crohn's disease is one thing that I've come to see as such a blessing. So is bullying, and for the same reasons. Bullying thickened my skin, and it gave me enough motivation. The summer going into 7th grade, wrestling was coming up. I made a pact with myself that I was going to transform my body. My family, we lived in a place, we ran a small motel in Catskill, New York, or in Liberty, New York, in the Catskills, Liberty Motel. And the challenge of running a small motel like this is it's got to be staffed 24 hours. And a change happened around this time that made the economics of running a small motel like this really difficult. And so when we'd lose staff, my entire family would move into the motel. And so at this particular time, my bedroom was room 14, right next to the office. And the pact I made with myself was 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 sit-ups, 1,000 squat thrusts, or I don't go out of my room. So every morning, as soon as I got up, didn't matter how long it took, that's what I did. And over the course of that summer, I transformed myself, lost 40 pounds. And the next year in school, nobody picked on me because everybody thought I was a fucking new kid.
Yeah.
It's crazy, you know. But I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful to my enemies, to everybody who ever took advantage of me, to everybody who ever loved me equally in the same. Because had any one of those things not happened, we wouldn't be sitting here in paradise living out our wildest dreams.
Yeah, man. Can I expand on that with a story?
Absolutely.
I feel the exact same. You know, I feel absolutely no animosity towards anyone who had made fun of me in the past, because, you know, secondary school at the time is such a war zone. It's, you know, you're just trying to get yourself up in the pecking order, and when some kid is putting himself out there, essentially asking for it, of course you're going to make fun of them if it can benefit you. You know, these people were children, they didn't understand. And I do remember one point I was at a school rugby match, and this is about 2 years ago now, so I was out of school already, and I was in the bathroom, and the guy walked in who would have picked on me in the halls and stuff. He was an older kid, and he was like big and tall, and you know, I seen him, and I wasn't afraid of him anymore in a sense, but I was like, this is probably not the first person I want to see. And I had just done a podcast about a week before, and he said to me, he said, you know, Gav, I listened to your podcast. I thought it was really great. He didn't apologize or anything. He didn't need to. That was enough. You know, in that moment, I thought that would be sort of like a gotcha, you know, but that's not what it was at all. I just had so much respect for the maturity he had to turn around, and I imagine that would have been really hard for him to you know, have the courage to say that, and I really, really appreciated it. So I agree with you there that I you know, I love everyone who will always, you know, who was making fun of me and stuff, because like you said, it shaped you into the person you are today, and it's the same with me.
That's it.
And you see, with me, I have like a bit of a different perspective towards it. So obviously, you know, growing up, getting bullied, it's not the best. So I mean, it's not the best whatsoever, right? Okay, I'm not going to go in here now. I'm not going to go in here. It's not that I don't have love for the people that do it, because genuinely I have empathy. Because if someone's going to try to put you down for doing something out of the ordinary, it's because they're insecure. It's because they can't fucking do it, right?
Always.
So one big thing that I believe that pushed me to where I am today is actually like channeling that negative energy. I like to call it fuck you motivation. Just channeling it into what I do on a daily basis. And I actually used to have a list of everyone that doubted me, everyone that chatted shit to me. I had a list of all their names. Every time I know motivation, I look at that list and think, fuck you, and I get to work, you know? And that's not to say that I don't have love for those people, you know, because I truly do have empathy for those that...
Well, sure, you wouldn't have that fuel.
Yeah, exactly. But
you wouldn't have that fuel.
That fuel is different. If someone out here is watching this podcast or listening to it, whatever it may be, and you find that you're being put down in some sort of way, whether that's by your parents, by other family members, your friends, whoever it may be, you need to channel that shit. You need to use that to your advantage.
I'm glad you just said bullying can happen in so many forms. And it comes in some of the most surprising places. often it is the people that we look to count on, that we really look for protection, that put us in the bullseye. Sometimes it comes in the most unlikely of circumstances. I mean, hell, the other day I posted a TikTok video of me just doing some yoga postures. And the tagline was, I owe Ian Young at Yoga Effects, where I got my teacher certification, transformed my life. You know, yoga in general, in this case it was particularly Bikram hot yoga 26 and 2, which really transformed my mind, body, and soul. Had everything to do with me getting off Humira, which is poison if you ask me. And I'll elaborate. The treatment for Crohn's disease, if you're unfamiliar, is an autoimmune inflammatory disorder of the intestine and the colon. Essentially, certain food stresses, different triggers will cause me to look like a pregnant person and deal with insane feelings of pressure and release. It can be crippling. As it's autoimmune, it works the same way as fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis. They're kind of all similar animals appearing in different parts of your body. But what modern medicine offers as treatment, which is mind-boggling to me, are drugs like Humira, biologics, which effectively shut down or reduce your immune system. Well, my path to diagnosis dealt with over the past 9 years. I've had 9 colonoscopies, endoscopies. I've been poked, prodded, hospitalized in every way you could imagine. I won't even get into medical bills. Shit, Humira alone is over $100,000 a year to give yourself a shot every 2 weeks. And what do you think happened as a result? My wife was an early childhood Head Start teacher at the time. And I literally had to have her quit her damn job because she was getting me sick every week. I was constantly in and out of the hospitals buying more medicine. You know. Then one day, years later, I meet a doc in Ithaca, New York. There's a guy, Dr. Richard Cohen. He's actually a chiropractor. But from the guy's own words, his own description, you know, he learned most of what he learned about true healing and medicine studying from a sorcerer in the Amazon. He went and lived for several months. He's one of the most fascinating guys. I mean, the guy's, I'm not going to reveal his age, but he's an older guy, and you know his hobby is hurricane kayaking. He and a group of guys his age go out every year at hurricane season and kayak the ocean. Savages.
Wow.
But he was the first person to realize and point out to me that what was going on was a combination of leaky gut, and that was actually the bigger factor than the Crohn's disease. And he was the first one who put me on the path to getting off of it. First identifying the different foods that were poisons. In this case, you know, in America, corn is one of the biggest culprits. Corn oil, because of pesticides like Roundup. You know, eating trace amounts of this over the course of your life can cause you to have your stomach lining literally start to dissolve. And so this is how Roundup, the way Roundup works to kill a pest is literally they consume it and it dissolves the lining of their stomach so that their stomach acids leak out and kill them. So you can imagine what happens over years and generations of American farmers plastering, you know, the corn products with this. It's so bad for me that I can't even eat meat that's corn-fed, you know? And I didn't realize that until I was here. When I came to Bali and ended up staying here for, you know, supposed to be a month, turned into 3 months, almost 4 even, what was notable was that was the first time I can recall in my life that I had months without stomach pain.
Wow.
The two things, I wasn't eating the shit food and I was doing yoga every day. And I learned how to breathe. I learned how to breathe through it. So what a journey in terms of, you know, and I just want to go back real quick to gratitude towards the disease. I'll be the first to say it. Having Crohn's disease, I know this might piss some people off. Some other people who are struggling with it, their disease went a different route, probably are going to have a hard time hearing this. Crohn's disease has been one of the greatest blessings in my life. It has caused me to live a disciplined life. The consequences of my misactions are so grave that they become crippling. First month of the pandemic, reveal, I own a retail wine and liquor store in Ithaca, New York. This has caused me to struggle with alcoholism. The first month of the pandemic, I watched my business. I went from everything's great to planning for bankruptcy. You know, our liquor store was based. It's on a hill. It's by a college, and the college left, and so suddenly 80% of our customer base was gone. I fell into such a depression that I couldn't get off the couch. It's remarkable how easy it is to do the things that make you feel like shit. How difficult it is to do the things that'll make you feel good. So what did I do? I started fucking drinking every day. I was going through a bottle of vodka a day. between 2 times stepping on the scale, it was the beginning of September, end of September, I dropped 40 pounds, 20 kilos, thereabouts. And that was the moment. That was the wake-up call. I realized that, like, I'm going to fucking die if I don't make a change, if I don't start listening to my body, if I don't start channeling it into fuck you fuel, whatever it is.
It's probably a very familiar story to you, is it?
Alcoholism.
No.
What?
People transforming their lives with fitness, man.
Oh yes, completely. I thought that's priceless. I thought that's what you said to me. I don't have a liquor store. Jesus, that's what I was thinking. I didn't know what you were talking about. I was like, my mum's gonna be watching this. Like,
We come from this really heartfelt story now. A bunch of laughs, man. That really sums it up.
I want to ask you both to just kind of take a moment and go back to the day you decided to drop out of school and what that meant to you, what your life looked like. A lot of people that started to resonate with this journey. So many people I'm finding have dreams. You'll notice I wear a Ganesha icon around my neck. Yeah. Ganesha, the story of Ganesha is the remover of obstacles. Now, I was raised Catholic. Both these guys are Catholic. I identify just as multi-spiritual. I won't get into my beliefs, but they're very different. They're very vast. But Ganesha resonates with me because it's been the remover of obstacles is the story. And in my life, that's what I've been for other people without knowing it. You know, I've had about a dozen near-death experiences, and every random, crazy, massive thing that I've survived. I was telling him earlier, I used to own a Subway franchise that came to a screeching halt on one of the worst days of my life. Ironically, my wife's birthday. Didn't know her yet.
whoa.
This morning, I got up. I thought I was going to have a great day. I had a real estate closing, and so I put my suit on, hopped on my Harley, and I go to my office, which is on a hill here. And now the road veers down this way, and straight ahead, a block away, is my Subway restaurant. It's on a pedestrian mall, the Ithaca Commons. I turn right, and I'm supposed to head to Mazda Law Office and drop off closing paperwork. Only thing was I hit a patch of oil on the pavement, and I totaled my motorcycle. I get up, trying to get out of the road because, quite frankly, I was fortunate that there was a bus here, a car here. It could have gone way different, this accident. And I actually rode the bike home shakily. And, I'm all freaked out. I'm bleeding. And halfway there, my phone starts ringing, vibrating. You know how you get irrational about things that, like, people, how the fuck nobody knows?
Yeah.
And, but still, it's their fault to me. And then when I get home, I see it's my store manager. And I answer the phone, hellfire and brimstone. Like, what? Do you know what I've been through? And then I hear the sirens. And he's like, boss, I don't know what just happened. I think a bomb went off. The whole building filled with smoke.
Wow.
He's like, you got to get over here right now. He's like, we got to close. And I remember my first reaction was like, you are not fucking closing no matter what. At this point, we were $200K in debt. It was, I had a terrible experience as a franchisee with Subway. But what happened was that a truck carrying a tractor trailer full of vehicles lost its brakes coming down this hill and smashed into Simeon's, the restaurant next door. It actually pinned a pregnant waitress to the wall. And as a result, the city had to cut the power. This was relative because it was a Friday, and we had just gotten our food delivery. And so cutting the power, I lost all my inventory. And I'll never forget it because I got in my car, and I'm still bleeding, and I drive back. And when I get there, I see this truck sitting out the side of the building. And what I noticed was this one kid, I won't reveal names, but he was her fiance. And he was holding her hand as she was pinned to the wall with the life draining out of her, including his baby. And I remember I went in one moment from feeling sorry for myself to just like this sobering reality of just how significant and how insignificant the bullshit is.
Yeah.
All that mattered to me was the money that I was going to lose in Subway. And in that moment, you realize that, fuck if none of that matters.
Yeah.
But anyway, take me back to what made you guys decide to drop out of school and why Spain? And to me, the fact that y'all just went somewhere else is mind-blowing.
I have a bit of a different story, actually. So he got as far as college. I didn't even get as far as college, right? Because he's a year older than me, and in Ireland, the school system is a bit weird. It's like first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year. Sixth year is like the final year of high school, I suppose you'd call it, and then you go into university from there. So Gavin proceeded with university whilst I was in sixth year, if that makes sense. So I was in my final year of school, and like I knew from my last 3 years in school, I knew that, you know, school wasn't for me. The education system, it didn't align with what I wanted out of life. I always kind of knew from a young age
I love that.
what I wanted, you know. And my mum, I used to always be annoying her. Sorry, mum, if you're watching this. But I used to always be annoying my mum. Like, mum, I'm not finishing school. I'm dropping out. You know, this is a waste of my time. I always knew that it was something that didn't align with what I wanted to do, basically. And my mum said to me, she was like, look, Sean, you don't have to go to university, but as long as you just finish school, she said, we'll be happy. So I said, fine. So that's what made me stick out school. And the second I was done school, I was like, yes, you know, now I can really focus on what I want to do. I can build, I can meet new people, you know, I can network. I have so much time to do what I actually want to do rather than sitting in a classroom for 8 hours per day. So, I mean, I didn't even get as far as university. I just finished school, got my leaving cert. What would that be called in America, the leaving cert?
SATs, I think. Yeah.
The SATs.
It means a lot more. We don't have continuous assessment. We just have one exam. That's it.
I see.
So got that done, and my parents were happy. So
at that point, were you doing any fitness stuff already?
Yeah.
Were you had already built a following? Like what was going on in your life?
So in the background, I was always building. So from the age of about 14, 15, that's how I started off with all this in the first place. So I didn't want anyone to know that I was doing social media at the time, because in the background, since the age of 10, I've been making YouTube videos, and no one knew that I was really doing it. And when they found out, I got bullied terribly for that.
Oh my God.
You know? So that's kind of what scared me and pushed me back from starting fitness and making fitness content at an even younger age. But I started posting on basically an anonymous account at the age of in around 14, I would say. No one knew it was me. Then what happened was, COVID hit, okay? And obviously we were in lockdown, and I said to myself, you know what? This is motivation, because I'm not going to be seeing anyone. We're all in lockdown. By the time this lockdown is over, if I fail at this social media stuff, I'm going to get bullied. So that was my motivation to drive me on to succeed. So by the time that the schools opened up and things started somewhat opening up again, went back to school, and I had about 10,000 followers built up at that point. And then people, of course, were going to chat shit, but they couldn't really say anything because I was making something of myself. And from there, I just started to build on that. TikTok started to blow up, my YouTube started to go viral, and before I knew it, no one really had anything to say anymore, and I just continued to build that throughout my school years then.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, I was similar enough to Sean. I never really took to school naturally. I was never like much of a natural academic, never really had fantastic grades in school, and for a lot of my time in school, I never even wanted to go to university either. And it was, you know, a breakup I went through when I was about 17, and I needed to channel my energy into something. And
With
for
breakup, you mean like with a girlfriend? Or?
Yeah, when broke up with, well, my girlfriend broke up with me when I was 17, and it really hit me hard. And I needed to channel my energy into something. What I ended up channeling it into was school and my grades. And, you know, luckily enough, the leaving cert that we do in Ireland is very linear. If you put in the work, you're going to get results. And I worked my ass off for that year. And still to this day, you know, getting those results is one of the best feelings I ever had. You know, not because it brought me to university or whatever. That's all irrelevant now. It was just the fact that I had this image in my head, and I told myself I was not an academic. I told myself this wasn't for me. And I proved myself wrong. I proved those around me wrong. Now, while I was doing that, my dream was to go and study business and Spanish in UCD, which is one of the bigger colleges in Ireland. To put this into perspective, I ended up missing that course by 3 marks on one exam.
Oof.
That was it. So that's another bit of maybe divine intervention.
What was the pre-existing interest in Spain? Just curious.
I always took to Spanish as a language. I love languages. I think, you know, come back to me in 10 years, I'll have 4 or 5 languages under my belt.
Nice.
So yeah, I was always interested in Spanish. I wanted to do business in Spain. I love Spain. You know, that's part of why we went there. And yeah,
what year was that?
This was 2021 when I finished school, so 3 years ago now. So that's I ended up missing that course by 3 marks on one exam, went to university anyway, went to the same university, did a different degree. And from day one, I was kind of running away from it. I really, really, really didn't like it. And I lied to my mom and said I loved it and, you know, tipped over for a while. And I was forced into it at the end. I'd love to say there was this day where the business took off and I left college that day, but that's not what happened. I failed an exam and had to repeat it, and I was on the road to repeating it, and I was going to fail it again. I was going to fail the year. So then I thought there was just no point in finishing off the year. I might as well leave, do the best I possibly can with this hair care business and see where it goes. At that point, I'd already been doing it for 2 years, but it was very, very steady. You know, I didn't have the focus that I needed for it. And dropping out of university really gave me that. And the day I did, my mom was so disappointed. She called me. I was in the gym. She was, you know, I wouldn't say she was screaming down the phone, but she was like, come on, you love UCD, don't leave. And I told her that I was going to just go for, you know, I was going to go back the next year. And that was the idea for the longest time. Kept working away at the hairstyling products. And I had this goal in my head that I had a financial goal. And I said, if I hit that mark, I'm not going back. And I'm pretty sure I hit it maybe like a week or two before the offers came out for the next year.
Wow.
So at that point, my mom had seen me working really hard over the last 6 months. About 6 months had passed between when I left and when the offers for the next year came out. And she was then 100% supportive. And that day that I left and she told me, like, no, not to leave, my dad actually ended up taking me out for a beer. My dad's an entrepreneur as well. He left school at 16. And he said, you know, I'm proud of you. This is what you should be doing. So.
Wow. That's it's amazing how different people's experiences can be based on the environment. How, you know, some people's parents, the truth is, some people's parents think they got it all figured out. And so the moment the kid shows something different, the arrogance of the parents step in and they think, no, I got to show you something. You know, meanwhile, the kid could be Da Vinci, you know, and in other cases, it's so rare, actually. If I'm being dead honest with you, I almost never hear that, where the parent, it's like, yeah, take that gamble. Chase your dream, you know, and it's sad that you don't hear it more.
And the thing is, though, like, it is sad, but I do think it comes from a good place of trying to protect our child.
Always.
Yeah, like, you know.
Always. I mean, I don't think the parents are out there, well, in some cases,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But in general, yeah, it comes from a place of love, but the effect can be different. And you know what? In some circumstances, they may be saving a kid from making the worst mistake of their life. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's all. I mean, we're three guys who have worked out for it.
Yeah.
What's interesting listening to both of you, and I actually just learned this from the both of you. You know, my story was completely different. From day one, man, I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I had everything planned out. I went from a guy who was an obsessive planner to a guy who plans not to plan. I plan to adapt. You know, I look at circumstances and understanding that there's going to be variables. I try and plug myself in the middle and do not think it further than that intentionally, because shit never goes according to plan for me. And so the moment that I started having fun with that, that was one of those big game changers. What's funny about Spain is I went to Spain. I did a year abroad in Spain in 2003, which was a terrible time for an American to be over there. This was, at the time, what was going on in the world. 9/11 had just gone down. And the U.S. had pretty much pointed the finger at Iraq, saying they were harboring Al-Qaeda, and used it as a mechanism to invade Iraq. The president of Spain at the time was named Aznar. And President Aznar was backing Bush. But the people of Spain were against it. Now, I had never seen uniformity like this, but wrap your head around this. Public school was let out early on a daily basis for organized protests against the president. Never in my life. I still, but being over there at that time, I get terrorized a bit. At one point, some kids were throwing rocks at me at the beach. I was with this German girl. We were laying on the beach, and I hear them yell down and barely understood what they were saying. It was real broken English. And he basically said, "Hey, I fucked your mother." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" And then I, kind of just waved it off. And what you don't realize is that you can spot an American a mile away.
Yeah.
A mile away. And I didn't know this yet because I hadn't really spent time out of the country. But next thing I know, I hear these pelts, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then I realized they're throwing rocks at me. I'm like, Jesus, crazy bastard. So I go running up to give chase, you know, and there's like this thing here and the road's up here. And right about the time I got halfway up on all fours, I heard a loud bang and then and they had thrown down a coral rock about that big. It bounced and hit Ellie in the head. Had it hit her directly, it would have killed her. It was the first time in my life. Now, me and this other American kid, Matt, we chased these kids down, you know, and got a hard lesson that we didn't have no rights. When, you know, we thought we were going to take them to jail or whatever like that. We got our asses kicked. Crazy story. But going back to the moment of starting these companies and whatnot, you know, when I went to school, I went to Ithaca College, went to the Park School of Communication, which is a great school. You know, they got this program. You spend half the time in Ithaca, and then the second half you go to LA, usually making great connections. Some of the people I graduated with, one guy I always see, Claire Popkin, so proud of him. I saw him at the Oscars not too long ago. He was a cinematographer on the film Solo, and I remember freshman year we were both exploratory. So when I knew I was good at writing, and so I thought script writing. Maybe I could, you know, transfer that in. And Cine Prod 1, the first class where everybody makes anything. You know, general rule of thumb is that it's all going to be shit. You know, everybody's going to think it's awesome, and it's all going to be shit. Well, that was the case, except for one kid in class, Joe Zohar. Joe made something damn good. And I was like, shit. And in that moment, I realized I don't got it. I don't got that magic, but he does. Maybe I can just kind of help him do what he does. And Joe and I got to talking. He had sunk like his savings into a camera. I think at the time it was like, what was it, a Sony? That was before the XLs. It was before the XLs. I mean, this is like, yeah, this is like 04. So all the gear is completely different. And what I had just gotten my student loan money. And so I basically doubled down, gambled my student loan money. We used that to buy some more gear, some computer equipment, form an LLC under the auspice that, you know, if we had formed a legal entity, we would own the content we made. Otherwise, Ithaca College would own it all. You know, you're using their gear, you're using so forth. And that started my first company. Problem was, sophomore year, my life changed on a dime when I got my girlfriend at the time pregnant. And I had this was like my first like weird religious thing. You know, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I remember that my immediate reaction was, let's get an abortion, you know. And then something happened. I was in Joe's apartment in Grandview, where we started Moving Box Studios. And I had bought a house maybe like 10 miles away. You know, this was like a theme in my family. My older brother led the way for this freshman year. He was like, buy a house, rent out the rooms, pay the mortgage off, screw room and board, screw paying a dorm or whatever. And so, you know, I kind of did the same thing. But I walked from Joe's place to my house and back, which had to be almost 20 miles, and I hardly remember the damn thing, like, at all. And when I got back, I was just determined that, like, no, this was out of our hands. This is in God's hands. That, you know, I can't do that as much as I wanted to. And so it ended up flipping, and I ended up convincing her that we needed to keep it. And the universe works in mysterious ways. She had a miscarriage, and she had a miscarriage days after the deadline had passed to where I could re-enroll, making my student loans due and payable, and I was no longer eligible for them. You know, my family's financial circumstances were tight. I'll never forget, I walked into the bursar's office at Ithaca College crying my fucking eyes out, asking if there was anything that they could do. And the woman, you know, some people just don't know what they're saying. Some people are just kind of mechanical. And I've met more of them, and over the years I've come to terms with what this woman said to me. But she looked me dead in the eyes and she goes, you know, it's really a shame you lost that baby. We could have done a lot for you, but since you lost the baby, there's nothing we can do. Boom, my eyes almost blew out of my fucking head, and I'm lucky I didn't get arrested.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, when life hands you lemons, you know, you make lemonade, and it's interesting the different paths we go down.
Definitely.
So I went from, that's where I swing, you know, that's where all of a sudden I realized wasn't going to be all these plans that I had. You know, the phrase comes to mind, God laughs when man plans. And it was a hard lesson learned.
That's very true.
That's the thing. I think that if people didn't go through these bad experiences, whether that be heartbreak, whether that be your business failing, whether that be people snaking you, stabbing you in the back, like, this is all the shit. Sorry, this is all the shit that makes you grow as a person. I mean, like, it's all well and good to wake up every single day and, you know, be grateful for the times that you haven't badly and go riding on your motorbikes. I was saying this to Gavin last night, actually. It's so easy to wake up every day and just live such a normal, such a fun, easy life. But, like, I was saying to Gav that that's not when you grow as a person. You grow, like, you grow spiritually, emotionally, you grow in every other way when you're going through these bad situations, when these bad things happen to you, when you get your heart broken, you know, when your business fails. This is the shit that forms you as a man. This is like the stuff that's going to make you the person that your kids are going to look up to, and you're going to be the person that has all these lessons to teach your kids. You know what I mean? So, like, all this shit, it just happens for a reason. Like, you're here on a podcast years later talking about that, and there's going to be someone out there listening that can relate with you, resonate with you, and learn from you. You know, it's crazy how it works.
One of the phrases, you'll notice I got writing all over my arm, and people ask me all the time what it is. I owe this my business partner, George Figueroa. He's fortunately or unfortunately, had to see how far I swing. Now, you know, I struggle with depression. I always have struggled with depression. I'll swing from... full disclosure, 2 years ago, I was suicidal. 2 years ago, I was dealing with some dark circumstances that were more than my body, my mind, and my soul could handle. It's how I ended up in Bali. And I guess the relevant factor in all that I'm just going to say is that today I'm living out my wildest dreams. And I wouldn't trade life with anybody. And I love myself more than I ever could have imagined. And it's just remarkable because my life didn't change. My perspective did. And then I changed everything. And with a simple shift of perspective, your entire life can change on a dime. And it is exactly why I started doing this show. Yeah. Because that transformation was so impactful, so powerful. And now, if there's anything I can do to give anyone on the planet just a feeling for what it feels like, for even just a second, for how I feel every damn day, oh man, every human being deserves that. And it's possible for every human being. It's just a matter of how we see the world in front of us.
And the thing is, people will see you now and where you're at and see how happy you are, but they won't see all the dark shit that you went through, all these things that you learned in these years for you to become the person that you are now. Yeah. That's the thing. People just, they don't look at that. They don't look at the bad. They just look at the good.
Yeah, that's true. And the bad is everything. And I mean, you know, it's funny, even this show. So coming to Bali, I fell in love with this place. And immediately, you know, I've got businesses back in the States. I've got a wife. I've got a daughter. You know, I've got 2 Airbnbs. I got a house. I got a lot of weight that I carry on a daily basis. It causes me to live a life where there's not a whole lot of time to think about you. In order to fit my time for me, and I tend to wake up at 3, 4 a.m., go to the gym around that time, 2 hours or so, when there's nobody in there. And that's my form of meditation. By the time most people get up and have their morning coffee, I've gone to the gym, written, recorded, paid my bills, and I'm on to the next one. You know, and that's kind of been my religion of how to just, you know, keep myself enthralled. Well, this show the formula's kind of become where, you know, being a poet, I'd write a poem, and that would be what inspired the episode. And so then I would make an episode and read the poem at the end. So about a year ago, I decided I was going to start making these videos because I had TikTok aspirations. Now, mind you, I'm a bit of a dinosaur by comparison. Facebook came out my freshman year of college. And I'll never forget it because everybody was talking about it. And I thought it was a physical fucking book. I kept looking for it. Yeah, I was like, how do I get the book? I want it. You know, like, it was ridiculous. So, like, you know, the notion of just Instagram and YouTube and all this shit was like what you guys have already done so far. You know, I'm looking at it and like it's amazing. You know, it's amazing.
Thank you.
The scales are flipped on that. You know. But so there's a learning curve, I guess. And anyway, I started making these edited videos where I would read the poem and have, you know, B-roll footage, and I would just do the voiceover. And it was shit. It was shit. I couldn't get anybody to watch. I think the most views I got was like 1,000 on one of these things. And I brought my wife here for the first time to see. Basically, we started a real estate company here. You know, when I came here, fell in love with Bali, I knew the only way I'd be able to make it a part of my life was if I did something crazy. And met somebody who introduced me to somebody else, who introduced me to a landowner who was building a villa. I saw an opportunity in his son, because his son was about your age, was about to get married, about to have a kid.
Our age?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's young. He's young.
Wow.
And what I knew was that if I took care of this man's son, he'd take care of me. And you know, I've learned through life relationships can be everything. So I made a promise to him on that day that everything I did going forward, Bob would be my brother, and he'd be my right hand, my arms and legs here in Bali. And so he took a chance on me, and he made me the deal that I could afford. The truth is, I couldn't afford that damn deal. I couldn't afford to pass it up, but I couldn't afford that damn deal.
Yeah.
So immediately, in the spirit of manifestation, I went out on my scooter and I'm riding around trying to figure out in my head how the hell I'm going to pay for this. And I come across an art gallery here, and if you've ever been to Bali, there's art galleries everywhere. There's so much artwork, sculpture, craftsmanship of every facet that to somebody who comes from the West, you just lose your mind. You lose your mind if you're into stuff. So anyway, I end up, next thing I know, I'm in this art gallery, and the idea comes into mind that I'll start having paintings made, and I'll sell them, you know. And so next thing I know, I'm negotiating a deal for custom original paintings that are going to be designed to my spec, that I would take back to the States and sell in the States. And this was the first moment I had of clarity where I was like, oh my God, I can monetize my travel. So every time I come here, all I gotta do is buy shit that I can sell for more money back in the States, and then bring it back here and throw it into the villa and just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And in 2 years' time, Bali's given me so much. So I came back this time around because the villa's supposed to be done in a couple weeks. I need to get it furnished, need to get it Airbnb, need to get it making its own money. Well, the crazy shit was that, like I said, I quit the show in September. When I got back to the States, between September and December, I didn't write, I didn't record a thing. I fell into a depression. I lost it. I actually remember the moment sitting in the living room that I looked at my wife and I said, I can't keep doing this show. It's killing me. I'm pouring my heart and soul, and nobody's watching. I'm not. And of course, you overlook the fact that I did have a very small following, and every one of those people told me how life-changing the stuff was that they were getting from it. But it wasn't enough, you know. When I got back to Bali, took part in the yoga teacher certification again, raised the next round of teachers. And at the graduation, they brought in one of 3 Buddhist monks left on this island and a panel of Hindu priests, and they performed for us a fire purification ceremony. And fire purification ceremony involves you they give you a cup of rice, and as you're throwing the rice in the fire, you're releasing sort of bad juju, I guess, wishing for peace for different things, and then you have your own wishes. And at the time, I wished that I would find a way to make my podcast blow up and that I'd get to 1 million followers. Well, a few days later, I got inspired to write something. Of course, once I wrote something, I was like, let me make an episode. And then the idea popped into my head to do the thing that I'd been terrified to do all along, and actually put myself on camera. And so I made my first video where I just read, and got over 12,000 views, which for me was nuts.
Amazing.
So then I did it again, and that one got like 24,000, and the next one 80,000, and the next one 450,000. And it's been 10 days, guys. It's been 10 days since this happened, and went from 200 followers to 6,000 followers. And then I meet these 2 guys who I didn't even know, but I'm talking about this change, and I'm like, man, I'm trying to get to 10,000. And Gavin very casually goes, yeah, I remember when I got my first 10,000. It was a good feeling. I was like, oh my God.
It's the best. It's the best. I envy you. You get to do it again.
That is the best feeling in the world.
I mean, it's, you know what, kind of like looking at it, I'm sure you know this now in hindsight, but looking at it and saying like it's not enough, I need more people looking and stuff is a very, very dangerous place to be. You know, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, a man that likes to walk will walk further than the man that likes the destination. And it's so true because, with content creation for me, and I'm sure you're the same, Sean, it's never, of course, the followers and everything is a byproduct, but I wouldn't have done it for as many years as I did if I didn't enjoy it. I was doing it, and so were you, for so many years. before anyone was looking. And to be honest, at the time, it didn't concern me at all. I didn't care if there was 3 people watching or 3 million. You know, it was just something I enjoyed. And eventually you land on something and then it completely changes, like you've had in the last couple of weeks, you know, and then you get addicted to that feeling. And then that's when it really changes, you know. That's when you start taking it more seriously and you connect with the audience, and it goes from something you enjoy to something you love. You know, that's been my experience anyway with it.
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah, man.
Like, I have a lot of people and they're in my DMs and they're constantly messaging me like, oh, how do I start social media? I want to make money online. They're saying this, that and the other. And the thing is, I was making content every single day without getting any money whatsoever for 3 years. Purely just 2.5 years it was. Purely just because I loved producing content, helping other people for free. That's why I was doing it. If you go into social media with the mindset of, I want to make money, I want to do this, like, you're not going to succeed realistically, because I made my first bit of money off social media 3 years in, you know, and there's people now starting up social media pages, not for the right reasons. It's for money, not to help people. And I always say to people that money is just a byproduct of how many people you help. At the end of the day, that's all that money is. So if you go into social media with an image in your head of just starting and moving to Bali and going to Marbella and doing this, that and the other, it will not last whatsoever. You need to genuinely start it because you want to have an impact on other people, like yourself with your poems, like you with your products. At the end of the day, everything that we're doing is all to help other people. That's what it all boils down to, and that's why we're sitting here today. But many people these days, they go into the mindset of, I just want to blow up on social media, I want to travel the world. It's more so out of just wanting to live a luxurious lifestyle rather than actually helping people. But that's just a byproduct of helping people, and they don't seem to understand that yet.
Yeah, people get that byproduct mixed up. You know, they might see the life that Sean and I have now, and you know, we've still got a long way to go, but we're doing quite well for ourselves now, and get the order mixed up. We don't live in Bali because, we don't help people so we can live in Bali. We live in Bali because we have helped people in the past, you know, and provided value into the world. And for me, that just wasn't difficult. It came easy, you know. It wasn't something I consciously chose. I just loved making content, and I should probably preface as well, my background is in barbering, and that is how I got into the hair care. So it was just always something I just fell into and enjoyed. And it was never a conscious decision like, I want this life, you know. It was just, I just rolled with the punches, really.
Yeah, I would even I would expand on that. It's not just social media. In my experience, when money is your focus, even if you get it, it ain't the same thing. In fact, it can become a curse. It can become a thing that drives you mad. But in most cases, you're not going to get the money until you let go of your hold of it. The day that I stopped chasing was the day of the subway accident. It was the day it came crashing down in a moment where I realized that, look what it got me. I was working at that place over 100 hours a week, so much so that I even got the apartment right above it just so I could go up and down. We'd open at 6, we'd close at 2 a.m. You do the math. I was there every goddamn day. And do you think I was making money? No, I was swimming in debt. But I tell you what, the moment that I let go of that and I started focusing on that same thing, helping people. Matter of fact, when I started the podcast, I didn't have anything to sell. I wasn't trying. Matter of fact, I was very intentionally not trying to sell things because, quite frankly, I'd gotten so sick to my stomach of all the damn so-called life coaches and business coaches whose life were in shambles and who had never started a business but were more than happy to take some poor sap's money to sell them a program that they bought online. You know, and so part of why I started doing what I was doing, because I wanted to give it away for free, because I had actually been through some shit. And I thought, man, you know, going through everything here, the reason to survive all that has to be so that I can help somebody else get through it too. You know, along those similar lines, you know, I'll reveal my big plan here in Bali and my big dream. And I'm gonna say that in 10 years' time or less, I will either have a school or a work program here where young guys fresh out of school before they go into college will have the opportunity to come stay for free. And the catch is going to be that you're going to teach English for 4 hours a day to underprivileged kids for free. Bali gave me so much, gave me everything, and that's the big give back that I want to offer here.
Whoa.
And the reason is I've never seen such a internationally diverse place in such a small geographic footprint. But the factor is, what language is everybody speaking? English.
Yeah.
And once I realized that if I could teach people English here, you'd be changing lives one at a time. Now, I could spend millions in the States and not have that kind of effect.
Yeah.
That was coupled with the fact that I met a lot of families here. And the hard reality of a lot of them, actually, Dex, good friend Dex, if you're watching, man, awesome guy. This is where I got my stomach tattooed. I still rent my scooters from him every time I come. He still picks me up at the airport every time I come. We became family from a very, very young age, or from a very early thing here as soon as we met. And Dex revealed to me that most families, they choose which kid gets to go to school, and the others get to go to work to help pay for that. And that was just a very sobering reality for me. Today, Dex was the one who went to school, and kind of like us, Dex learned how to drive, became a driver, leveraged that, opened a tattoo shop, started a scooter rental thing.
Whoa.
And he's doing all right now, man. He's living a life that few Balinese people get to live. One of the most special moments I'll ever forget, after getting this tattoo, I had all this shit, because immediately I was buying all this stuff. I was like, I gotta get this home. So I get there, I have Dex pick up my stuff. Now, I'm getting my stomach tattooed, hopping on the plane like several hours later. This is like 6 a.m. And I realize that I'm out of space. And so I open up my suitcase and I got all these clothes. And I see the guys like looking at it like, boy, those are interesting clothes. And I'm like, well, shit. You guys want my clothes? And all this, the next thing I know, it's like a fucking fashion show. These guys are parading around, taking photos, selfies. It was like one of the coolest moments. Honestly, one of the most memorable days I've ever had in Bali.
Wow. And I think that, and also, your goal about building the school is such an admirable goal to reach for, because one thing I've thought about recently is money can buy happiness, but not for you. So as soon as you start, as soon as you've made a couple quid and you start thinking that you're going to buy yourself whatever it is, a nice car, or you're going to, that's when, I've also heard money can be compared to a really sharp knife. You can cut a really nice steak, make some beautiful food, or you can stab yourself in the chest. And using your money to, pay yourself through is not the way to go. I think you can use it to help others and bring happiness to others, like you will be with the school, and that's what's really going to bring you fulfillment. And I guess everyone's mission is to figure out what that is for them.
Oh yeah, man! It'll drive you a lot further than a Ferrari will. I'll tell you that.
Big time.
I think about that often, because I went through the phase. First time I came into money, George remembers this. George Figueroa, my business partner, man. We went to Atlantic City, and all of a sudden, I had started to figure it out, and I had started to make money, and like out of nowhere, I just went through this phase where I was just a diva. Like, I just wanted fucking everything that I could never afford. I wanted the watches, I wanted this, I wanted that, all this expensive shit. And you eventually realize it's just a hole. The more of it you get, the more empty you feel. Moment you start looking at what you can do with stuff. I mean, I can tell you that I've been going through to sell all my watches, all that shit that I bought over the years, because I figured, fuck, we just put it in the ground over here. I mean, look at the stuff we can do here. And you get so much more.
Yeah, I mean, think about like how others perceive you when you think of your money, like your money's utility. If you go and buy a Rolex or a car or whatever, thousands of other people have that same watch and car. But if you do something unique and genuinely good, the way other people are going to perceive you and the blessings you're going to get back from God are, I think far more fulfilling.
The most addictive thing on the planet, the greatest high I ever got, happened here last time I was here. It happened 5 different times with 5 different people. And what it was they told me I changed their life forever. And this wasn't through any intentional action of mine. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I could do that, But it really just came in exactly this, telling the story of survival, of how a simple shift in perspective can change your life, and how life change is possible at any moment like that, and how dreams can come true even when you're viewing at them through a peephole in the darkest fucking corner of your psyche, The moment I started realizing what that felt like, holy shit. Yeah, I got high off it. You talk about it being a selfless endeavor. Truth be told, this is the most selfish thing I've ever done, because nothing has ever made me feel so electric and so powerful as to have somebody tell me that I changed their life forever. Yeah. And so all I want is to hear that for the rest of my goddamn life. Yeah. That's my selfish intention. You know, it's an interesting, because it certainly is something I get out of it. Only that to me is worth more than any fucking Ferrari, any mansion, any bullshit like that.
There's nothing selfish about that, man.
Nah, there's not, because at the end of the day, you're still changing someone else's life around, so it's not really selfish, you know? It's like an exchange. It's an exchange more than anything.
Yeah, feels like that I'll acknowledge my, you know, that, I absolutely get something out of it. People ask me all the time, like, what do you get out of this?
Yeah.
I just did.
Nah, I'm the exact same, and I feel like that's why I do what I do as well with the coaching, because it's like, I have 12 weeks to change someone's life around. Within these 12 weeks, I make sure they implement habits that change their life around. It's not just fitness coaching, it's mindset coaching as well. I want them to level up in all aspects. And at the end of those 12 weeks, when they end up coming to me and saying, Sean, you changed my life around, that is something that, you know, I've never felt, let's just say, I never felt that way when money came into my bank account. It's a different feeling.
And you won't.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, you won't.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I expand on that? Oh, sorry, go ahead first.
No, I was just going to say, and you're probably going to say something similar. At the end of the day, I think that's what the universe, God, I think that's what they want us to do as well, to help others change lives. I think at the end of the day, that's all what life is about, helping other people and making other people feel good about themselves and helping them level up as well. I think that's like the whole point of life, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think God gives us a purpose necessarily, but he wants us to figure it out for ourselves and follow whatever it is we want to do. You know, he gave us free will for a reason. And I kind of wanted to expand on what Sean was saying and say why I like doing what I'm doing. I mean, you were saying 2 years ago you were suicidal. Like, welcome to the club. You know, how many men are killing themselves these days? And,
that's right.
You know, it's...
and telling everyone else they're fine.
Yeah.
It's really, really terrible. And I think what's something in feminine culture that's so beautiful is that, say they're going on a girls' night together, you know, they might be leaving the house at 9 o'clock. They might be leaving the house at 9 o'clock to go to the bar or whatever, wherever they're going. But they're with each other at 3, doing each other's makeup, sharing clothes with each other.
We can do
themselves
that. We can do that if you want. Just ask, lad. Just come to me and ask me.
So this is my idea. This is something I want to bring into masculinity a little bit with my products. I think from the girls I've spoken to, they get such a great feeling from getting themselves glammed up with their makeup and their hair and their clothes and stuff. And guys will throw on a t-shirt and a pair of jeans and be good to go. You know, maybe brush their teeth. That's no way to present yourself. Like, you know, when I really struggled for a while with work and feeling motivated, and a good friend of mine, Philip, told me, he said, man, this is when I was living in Spain, he said, no wonder you're getting nothing done, you're procrastinating. When I come in, like, you look like you've barely showered and you're wearing swimming togs, you know? He was living on his own at the time, and he said, when I get up in the morning, I put a pair of jeans on. He worked in his room and he wore shoes, and, you know, in his own bedroom. And he said, I even put cologne on. You know, it's all just mental. So I think there's a lot to be said about, you know, like, taking care of yourself physically. And that's why, you know, I don't think I'm going to solve male suicide from hairstyling products, but I think I can do 0.5%, maybe. I can be this tiny corner in it where somebody leaves the door that day, leaves the house, and instead of looking like crap, they look a bit better, they look a bit more presentable. They might talk to that girl they wouldn't have. They might push the boat out in that business meeting, you know?
And I think...
Absolutely.
I think that's the translation as well between, like, looking good. Like, when you feel good about yourself, you're gonna excel. Like, realistically, if you're looking good, like, and you know that you're looking good, you're gonna feel good about yourself. You're gonna talk to more people. You're gonna have more insightful conversations. You're gonna go out there. You know, there's so many different opportunities that actually feeling good about yourself and taking care of yourself mentally, physically, in all aspects can actually bring you. You know, there's so many doors that actually opens.
You touch on, oh man, vanity is an interesting thing, and like a lot of things, I would use a metaphor with TikTok, right? So I started talking about using TikTok, and a lot of people I run into have like a political issue with TikTok or whatever, or just with, I kept hearing the phrase, oh, TikTok is only this. It's only these kinds of videos, which is a big reveal if you know how it works, because what that means is that's what you look for. You will find anything you want on TikTok, from crazy information and education to, just people posting partially naked pictures of themselves, whatever it is. But it is what you make of it.
Yeah.
It's not the medium that's bad, it's the usage of it. I mean, and that's one of those things where it's been such an eye-opening reveal for me. I had to cross that bridge too, and at first, vanity was something that I really, because when I was short and fat and I made my body transformation, it was never again. I found wrestling, and from that point forward, I was always shredded. Even ninth grade, I had muscles. I had real muscles. It just happened.
Yeah.
Vanity can serve a purpose like anything else, and I think the automatic associations that come when you look at it. Yeah, I spend a lot of time making sure that I look and feel good. I was telling these guys, I got up in the morning, I was dealing with a bit of a Crohn's issue, and I got my own little secret things that I start doing. So I go get my sea moss, my sauerkraut, and my baking soda water to make sure that I'm not going to be all bloated. I put a sea moss scrub on my face.
Yeah.
Let that sit for 20 minutes so that I can look good.
Yeah.
When you look good, you feel good, you present good. And I can tell you that how I look has opened so many doors here. Particularly because I look different.
Yeah.
Back home, I don't look so different. There's plenty of Dominicans. There's plenty in New York. There's plenty of Dominicans.
Yeah.
Here, there ain't so many.
Yeah.
And that's led me to be able to open the door to so many conversations, to talk to people I wouldn't have.
Exactly.
You guys saw me out the other night, and there's nobody you're going to find that I'm not going to go talk to.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I would have been a guy standing in the corner wondering what to do with his hands. It's amazing how that transformation can happen.
Where do you think that transformation starts?
Me being at peace with me. One of the things that used to get me there is that Crohn's, man.
Yeah.
Half the time I feel like I'm going to shit myself.
Yeah.
You don't exactly feel attractive or approachable when you're sweating, because you don't know if not to be gross, but you don't know if the next fart is going to be a shark.
Yeah.
I mean, like, really, it's the number of times where I've felt just disgusting. And to be honest, in the yoga program, I connected with those guys because they saw my vulnerability.
Yeah.
That room, I found myself crying in front of a room of about 50 strangers at first class, because Ian pulled me up to the front and had me tell the group why I was there. Now that happened because he saw what I looked like from across the room.
Yeah.
Ian would later reveal something that blew my mind at the graduation. He said the reason he does that, it's a tactic. And he teaches teachers to do this. He said, when that guy steps in the room that scares the shit out of you, call him up, have him tell his story, break the ice. When it's another yoga teacher, one thing that's remarkable to me about yoga is how many people come into yoga from a place of judgment, from a place of arrogance, which is absolutely opposite everything yoga is about. The other day, I never finished this story. I was posting yoga videos, and a freaking grandma comes out and cyberbullies me, says that this isn't yoga, this is acrobatics disguised as yoga.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, try to keep it positive. My response is, what did I say? All pieces of the same puzzle. Endless love, namaste. And my wife was not too happy about this. She like starts going back and forth, and the two of them are tit for tat. She's like, oh, so you invented the yoga asanas and postures, and and the woman's like, oh, well, actually, I'm a yoga scholar. At which point, I had enough.
Yeah.
I was like, if you had learned the first thing about yoga, you wouldn't be out here slandering, promoting negativity, and judging other people. So shame on you. Get over yourself.
Yeah.
Reported for cyberbullying, blocked, and done with. And on to the next one. I wanted to respond, and it was every fiber of my thing to go in there and take this opportunity to educate somebody who claims to have educated themselves on that, but chose to translate it into something else. The point, getting back to it, was that this was Ian's tactic of dealing with yoga bullies who were going to come into your class, mainly to see what they could do better than you, or to see where you suck, or to see where you falter. And those things exist in every field. You're going to have them in other fitness coaches. You're going to have them in other hair care products. You might be at a trade show and half the people there are just coming to dissect your product so that they can recreate it or to tell somebody else what's wrong with it. Life is about expectations. And the one thing that helped me come to terms with that was the moment that you started expecting that.
Yeah, it's one of the big things from Marcus Aurelius and Meditations. He writes, the people you deal with today are going to be arrogant and rude and ignorant, and you have to go into the day expecting that. And if you do expect that, then you're safe. You have your guard up,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Your experience with a thief is completely different when you recognize he's a thief and are waiting for him to reach in your pockets and steal.
Yeah.
Versus if you think he's a priest and you go there, for something completely different and end up getting taken to the cleaners.
Yeah.
You're going to walk away in one case with hatred, loathing, and dark shit in your heart. In another case, you're probably going to have a chuckle. Ian from the yoga thing said something that stuck out to me. He's continued to say it. And it was funny because I had my own version of this statement. But he said, do you know what the formula for happiness is? And the answer was, when your expectations and your outcome are the same thing. Now, you can't always control your outcome, but you can always control your expectations. And I have found that to be the secret to happiness in life.
Completely agree.
Love that.
We were talking earlier, forgive me, I go off on tangents a lot. Channeling ADHD is something that guys like us
They're all
use.
interesting ones, though. They're all very interesting.
So the mantras, all of these are mantras, and they're all tattooed on my arm because sometimes I need to hear them. And so George used to tell me when I'd be in my dark pits, nobody can pull me out. It's like I become the heaviest weight on the planet. I tend to be one of those people who how I'm feeling is how everyone around me is going to feel.
Yeah.
And just kind of an amplifier. And so as a result, once I became aware of that, when I was feeling dark, I'd hide. I'd stay away from anyone because I was so afraid of the damage I could do in one bad day because it was a lot. It was way more than I could fix in one good day, So George told me I should record myself talking, and instead I went the form of writing all these mantras on my arm, all things that I need to be reminded. But what we were talking about before was what's written on my arm is all good things come from discomfort or are born from discomfort. And this is where you can start to look in. Once you realize that, you can start to really have appreciation and gratitude and freedom of fear of all of those dark things that happen.
Yep.
And the moment that you start living a life, stop living a life that's driven by fear and start living a life that's driven by love, everything changes. It's just the same way the moment you stop being money motivated and you start being purpose driven.
And I actually had, going back to what you were saying there about love, we actually had a friend over at the house last night, and he was saying to me, he was like, do everything in love. He was like, eat with love, coach people with love, speak with love. You can do everything in love, and if you operate from a place of love, your life is going to be filled with love. Your life is going to be filled with happiness. You really just have to just feel love for everyone, really.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing.
And for
Absolutely.
me, it's the same with prayer. Like, as a Christian, it's very, very hard to explain because it's been a long journey to Christianity for me. And instead of now praying X amount of times a day, I live my life in prayer. When I see someone less fortunate on the street, I pray for them in my head. When somebody dishonors me, I pray for them as opposed to lashing out and getting angry. When something good happens to me as well, flip it. I pray, I say thank you. And it's changed my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I can attest to this. The other day we went out to Sandbar Beach Club, and Sandbar gets wild. What's funny is, so I usually hang out with the owner of Sandbar, who's friends with Bob. I call him my Bali father. He's the guy who owns my land, gave me the opportunity to build a villa. His son, Bob Jr., is like my brother here. And so Sandbar happens to be where we would always go, right? And usually it's Friday night, Saturday night, catch sunset, listen to the music, and then we leave. I never knew what happened at Sandbar around midnight, which is madness. I mean, it's like, if you're my age, you're thinking of Cancun, Mexico, MTV Spring Break. That's literally, that's the closest I've ever seen anything like it. It's just a mob scene.
Yeah.
And so we're out, and I sweat I sweat disgusting. And so I had to like cross this thing. There's like a little pool and there's a little sand thing over there. And I'm like, you know what? That's where I'm going to go dance because, and being Dominican, I can't stop dancing. You know, the music's playing, I'm going. So I need space. Otherwise I'm going to be bumping into people and I'm sweating like a pig. And he comes up to me and he goes, man, look, that guy over there. And there's this guy kind of sitting by himself. And he's like, let's go talk to him. And it was just an awesome moment. I was like, wow, man. Like you are really, you know, it's real. It's real. You really feel it. It's something that I resonated with me a lot. So just pointing out, it's cool watching.
Checking the blood sugars.
Yeah. So tell what happened this morning.
This morning, okay. This morning now there was a series of events now this morning, okay. So basically, woke up, that was fine. Felt very, very shit. Like, felt really, like, sickly and stuff. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, so I checked my blood sugars. My blood sugars were a bit high. So I didn't think much of it. I was like, that's fine. I'll give myself a bit of insulin to bring down the blood sugars to correct them. Did that. Then I was having a shower to freshen myself up, realised that my insulin pump, which actually, you know, pumps insulin into my system, wasn't even connected. So it was actually after falling off overnight. So for the last 12 hours, I basically not being diabetic because there was no insulin pumping into me whatsoever. And I changed that. That was fine, ready to go out the door. Next thing you know, I started hearing a beep. So I checked. No battery. So I was thinking to myself, it is fucking mental how I'm literally running off a battery. Like, that is what is keeping me alive. I'm bionic, motherfuckers. I'm bionic out here. It's mental, like, you know. It's weird to think about that. That's actually what's keeping me alive. Just a single battery, you know. But I love it. I love it because every day it feels like, you know, I'm living life on edge consistently. You know, I think it's mad.
This is what we were talking about the other night when you're staring into the face of death. That's when you feel most alive. I don't think you need to necessarily be in the face of death as much, you know. But the further you get away from that, the less you really feel alive. And what I mean by that is just staying in your hometown, not doing the travels you want to do, not spending time with friends, not even going on little day trips and things like that. That can make a person feel terrible, you know.
So I said before that, you know, the secret to happiness. I had a few of these random epiphanies, and they all occurred in meditation. And that was the first one. The secret to happiness was controlling your expectations. You know, the moment that you can line up your expectations and have proper expectations. And this happened because I was going through a period where I felt everyone around me was letting me down. Yeah. And I was pissed. I had had enough of it. You know? And I started to make myself sick. And around this time, I had really discovered and started leaning heavy into meditation, and it just clicked. It just popped into my head. You know, the second one was following some of my darkest periods. I had an epiphany about what the cure for depression was. Purpose. Yeah, I've never been depressed when I've been chasing a dream, and it dawned on me just how important it is for people to know it's okay to dream. Yeah, you know, to give yourself permission to do it. And to keep fucking doing it every day of your life, you know? Since then, another thing written on my arm is that, you know, my greatest aspiration in life is to grow up to be a kid. And it cracked me up. Just a couple people I've said that to, and it just made zero sense to them. You know, and I just put a big old smile on my face. You'll figure it out one day. I didn't even bother explaining. You know? Like,
that thing that you mentioned as well about, like, you know, having a purpose. I think that is the cure to a lot of things in life. Like, if you have a purpose, you have something that you want to work towards. Every single day you wake up with a mission. You're not waking up and, you know, going into this downward spiral of procrastinating, doing nothing and stressing. You wake up and you just get to work. You know what you have to do. You know what you want to achieve. You know who you want to impact. And you wake up just with that burning desire to make shit happen, to make shit work. And I was only saying to Gavin last night, I had a breakup 7 or 8 months ago, and it really taught me, it really showed me how I actually deal with emotions and, like, you know, being stressed out and everything. And how I deal with it is simply by just having a purpose and working harder, because anytime I'm feeling any sort of stress, feeling down on myself, simply just work harder. You know, I'm keeping busy all the time. There's always something to do, because it's like, you know, I genuinely don't understand how people are bored. I genuinely don't understand it. Like, if, you know, there's plenty of things you can do. Go to the gym, DM girls on Instagram, you know, write a few poems like yourself.
Whatever it is, figure it out.
Yeah, there's so many different things that you can do. But I think the secret is to just simply staying busy with things that help you work towards what you want to achieve. That is the secret to genuinely waking up every single day feeling happy and feeling excited to get started.
It's also incredibly attractive, you know, not just to women but to other people around you. If you have a purpose and you're really chasing after something, people can smell it off you.
Yeah, it's
They want to be around you. You know, whether that's men, you know, like other guys you want to hang around with, or if it's a girl you want to date, they can smell it off you.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and it's contagious.
You start going, it's wildly contagious, and it's inspiring. And you know, people get inspired by other people. It's the reason they say idle hands are the tools of the devil. You know, and me personally, that's been the precursor to addiction. I've struggled with addiction my whole life. I've got a wildly addictive personality. I've just been able to get addicted to fitness and to yoga and to taking care of myself and to inspiring people, which is why every freaking day, the moment I realized the effect I started happening, it was last time I was here, a lot of this started, I met a French shamanic healer who owns a retreat center here in Bali, and he taught me about manifestation ceremonies. And we didn't even get to do it together, but he showed me how to do it, and I did my first one. And from that moment forward, it got crazy. It got so real that the people around me who were witnesses to it started telling me to shut the fuck up because they were afraid of what I was going to say because they knew it was going to happen immediately. You know? Wow. And this has been kind of a running theme. And the only reason I say that is because when you start talking, even it's that about purpose, you're going to find other people with purpose. You're going to find people who are strategically placed right in front of you to help you accomplish that purpose or to make you believe you could do it so that you could make somebody else believe that they could do it.
Yeah.
And it's a remarkable thing. It's an energy that once you get caught up in, all you can do is rise like a fucking tornado. You know, as you're talking, all I can think of is Christopher Walken, Catch Me If You Can.
Oh,
Two mice fell into a vat of butter.
Yeah.
You know, and
One
being the
kind
mice
out,
that
yeah.
churn. Yep.
And like,
the butter.
one thing you were saying there a second ago is like, once you actually have that purpose, you come across more like-minded people. And like, it's what they say, you know, if someone came to you and they said to you, like, spot a yellow car, you're going to spot so many fucking yellow cars, right? So I mean, if you're there consistently looking for opportunity, what are you going to find? You're going to find opportunity after opportunity, no matter where you go. If you just have that mindset of abundance, opportunities, it's going to come your way.
That's it.
It's going to come your way.
Exactly.
Man, I got to go back. We were talking. Me and the guys the other day. We went out to go to Atlas nightclub, and before that, we were having a conversation that I can't quite remember how it started. But I mean, we've all had the weight and impact of suicidal thoughts hit us at different times. And the thing that stuck out is that when somebody actually does commit suicide, why it's so tragic and why it hurts so bad is because it's a permanent action that's taken based on an impermanent feeling or thought. And, you know, these guys have been talking about breakups, and I don't know why I feel it necessary to say this, but I mean, it was just kind of a funny point where I said something to him, and I said, you know, I guess it's kind of like, it was because you said, you know, sometimes I'm so hungry for a wife. And it's a hard thing for me to hear because I was so, you know, essentially I gave up my 20s. You know, I gave up my 20s because I was working from 19 on. And at some point I started to believe that was going to come back circle and, you know, I'd have my 20s and my 40s and that's exactly what's happening. And quite frankly, I wouldn't trade it for a damn. Yeah. I'm quite content with how things are working out. But to help him come to terms with this breakup, it's, you know, think about it, man. Like, that's a permanent action based on a temporary feeling, you know, and it's, whether it's this, that, or another, the point is to recognize when that is happening to you, because that is something that can cause men to do things, or men, women, whatever, it can cause people to do things or decisions that you make, the consequences of which will last with you forever. And, you know, we're three guys who probably are going to speak to a lot of people who have dreams, aspiring dreams of freedom, financial freedom. The more people I talk to, and I always say you got golden handcuffs on. People who have like a great job, but the trade-off is that's all they have. Yeah. And I spent most of my life envying these people. The reason this show is called The Brokest Guy in the Room is because I used to be walking around furious, feeling like the brokest guy in the room everywhere I went, and until I started to make it work. One day I had this epiphany. Being a real estate guy, I should have seen it sooner. In real estate, there's something, you never want to have the most expensive house on the block. And the reason for that is because every other house on the block, when you're the most expensive, is bringing down your value. What you want to have is the cheapest house on the nicest block, which means every other house on the block is lifting up your value.
Yeah.
So being the brokest guy in the room, one day, simple shift of perspective. That's all that changed, you know? And then I realized, fuck, that just means I'm in the right goddamn room. I ought to be the brokest guy in the room for the rest of my life. That should be my grand aspiration. And that's when...
The thing that, I kind of applied to my own life, which is very, very similar to that, is the way I look at it is, if I'm not the stupidest person in a room, I'm in the wrong room.
That's it.
I am in the wrong room if I am the smartest there. I love feeling stupid because I just shut my mouth, I observe, and I listen, and I learn.
Yeah, it's imposter syndrome, and it's very real. You think you don't belong somewhere, and maybe you don't, but that's the only thing that's gonna stimulate growth. And coming back to the golden handcuffs you were talking about, I love that phrase. And I think that's why me not getting into that university that I really wanted to go to was the biggest blessing in disguise I've ever had, because if I had been there, who's to say I ever would have been galvanized into leaving? I would have had these golden handcuffs saying that that this was my dream, this is what I wanted, this is what I worked so hard for. Why throw it all away now? I don't know what would have happened, but I'm afraid that could have been it. And I actually wanted to ask you guys a question as well. Coming back to that, would you say you're more afraid now of going into the unknown, or are you more afraid of inaction? What you don't do, what you decide to not do. Does that scare you? Because that scares the life out of me.
What do you mean by
inaction? I mean when an opportunity comes by and then you turn it away, or you're thinking you should do something and you don't do it. That scares the hell out of me.
Do you want to take it first, or?
No, you go first.
Okay. The way I look at it is, one thing that I've started doing recently is just not focusing on the outcome. I've just really been detaching from the outcome, the things that I really, really want, like on a long-term time scale, let's just say, right? On a long-term time frame, I've just kind of detached from what I want. Now what I focus on is not the outcome, but the daily inputs. So I take every single day as it comes. So let's say now, if I know that I have to get shit done, I don't think about scheduling to next week, the week after. I think, okay, what can I do today to bring me closer to my goal? Because at the end of the day, today is all we have. So now I just take each day as it comes, and I feel like the rest will just follow. So if I focus on these daily inputs, the outputs, they'll come.
Definitely.
They'll come. So I don't stress that.
To be honest, it's become, that phrase, all good things come from discomfort, is there's a reason I put it on my body. I made a conscious decision to run into the uncomfortable situations because that's where the growth is. And so I wait to feel that fear. And that's what I use as my compass.
You're absolutely right. That's one of the big ideas in meditations as well by Marcus Aurelius, that, you should not, he warns heavily against messing with nature, whatever nature has for you, and change is one of the most fundamental parts of nature. It's one of the most fundamental parts of life. And when you resist against it, that's not a good place to be. It's really not a good place to be.
Yeah, the universe is a bit stronger than we are, stronger-willed. In the spirit of being grateful for the people who've wronged you, a few years ago, I got involved with a gentleman who had an auction business, and the guy painted, such a picture, and on the surface it was remarkable. Woman's intuition, man. My wife met this guy, and in 3 seconds she pulled me aside. She said, "Be careful. That man's eyes are empty." Now, he had started an auction company. I had a real estate brokerage license. And he had the idea that an auction company was valuable because he was doing clean out services. Now, what nobody was offering was a business that would go start to finish. Say you inherit an estate. Estate's filled with shit and needs repair. And so what we were able, by teaming up, what we were able to offer was, listen, we'll take on a listing, we'll sell all the contents inside, we'll make all the repairs, we'll finance you that cost, and we will take it out of our cut at closing. You know, turning a problem into a solution day one. It worked. You know, we had our first client before the ink even dried. It was a needed solution. This guy also had children who were on the spectrum, and he was having trouble getting quality autism, therapy and education. And he had reached out and found there's a guy named Dr. James Carboni, who was one of the leading autism therapists in the world. I believe he went to Dubai. Like, he had closed his clinic, kind of disappeared for a couple of years. What he was doing was developing a curriculum that he could license out to other clinics.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this guy and his wife managed to seize the first one. And so suddenly, the only two places where you could get Carboni autism treatment was in Dubai or Danby, New York, which you knew, I mean, it's just, what?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Makes no sense.
And so when he started this school, it's called Blue Sky Center for Learning, and it still exists, actually. It's the one thing that I still take away and kind of hold my head high. But at one point I walked into his office, and it was looking like somebody shot his dog, and I'm like, what's going on? And he looks at me, and he goes, we got to close the clinic. And something came over me. I was like, what? No, you're not closing that damn clinic. Are you crazy? And he needed... I intentionally let myself forget the amount. I believe it was about $40,000. And without even thinking, I just cut him a check for $40,000. I figure you'll obviously there was a promise to pay back. I wasn't going to charge him any interest. I wasn't going to, it was over my dead body. I was going to sit there and watch this school close because it was having a real impact. What I didn't know was that the guy was basically running a Bernie Madoff scheme, out of his auction business. He wasn't paying consigners. I don't know where all the money went.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he ended up in jail to the tune of $2.5 million in grand larceny charges, and I ended up last in a very long list trying to collect my money. Left only with the option, essentially, to go after Blue Sky for a promissory note. That he drafted as the CEO of Blue Sky. And I told him from the get-go, I don't want that shit. You think I'm going to go after a freaking autism clinic? What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
Don't try and put that on me, you bastard.
Fucked, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he ended up in prison, and I ended up walking away from that debt. But the thing that helped me come to terms with it was that Blue Sky still exists. They're still treating kids in Ithaca, New York.
Wow.
Well, it's incredible that you were able to have an impact on that. Then, I had a similar enough experience. To a much lesser extent. About August last year, I met a guy I met him at a networking event, and he'd heard of the business, and he said, you're the founder of Poseidon, I recognize you. And I said, yeah, how you doing, whatever. He introduced himself. He was like, yeah, look, this is what I do. I essentially help businesses like yours get into retailers. I know it can be really hard. You don't have any connections.
Cool.
And that's one of the biggest things I'm struggling with. I don't know how to get into retailers. And just like with your guy, there was a ton of promises, and I met this guy a couple of times, and I was like, wow, this is the deal of a lifetime. One of the biggest red flags early on was it was a fixed fee, and he had such a slick explanation. I said, why is it a fixed fee? If you're so confident that you're going to get me these sales, why would you not take a percentage? And he said, well, look, if I was to take a percentage in order for it to be profitable and to be worth it, I would need a much higher one. But if I just take the fixed fee, I can take less. So you're actually saving a lot more money. And I was like, okay. At the time, that made sense. I ended up working with this guy for 4 months, paid him about $4,000, until I realized he was just a complete sleaze. I remember he got on the phone with me. And by the way, I got absolutely zero return. He didn't get me not one pharmacy, not one barbershop, not one retailer, nothing. Zero. And I remember I got a call from him. And this is about a month after I'd said, this is the last month I'm going to do. And then we're done. If you don't get me any return. Real smooth talker as well. So he calls me up and he says, yeah, look, we've got Boots for you, which is, one of the bigger retailers in Ireland. And he said, also, yeah, this pharmacy wants you to come in. And I said to him, okay, can you send me the emails? I want to see. He was like, no, they called me. This is the day before Black Friday. I'm like, you're telling me these retailers are calling you the day before Black Friday, the busiest time of the year, to tell you that they want to take on this small...
Is that bullshit?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so he said, yeah, this is when they do all their buying. And I was like, no, wait, whatever. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. Let me know when you have more information. What do I get that next morning? My next invoice. You just carrot on a stick, you know?
Yeah.
He thought I was like a gambler that was just, you know, waiting on the next horse, you know, going to bet on the next horse to make it all back. But that's not what I did. I cut it there, thankfully. But, you know, that €4,000 that I lost, because I lost it at 20 years old, and I have 40, 50, 60 years left in business in me, in my career, is going to compound over time. I will never fall for a sleaze like that again. And because it happened early, it's going to compound. I have a lot of years now that I'm never going to fall for a sleaze. That could have happened in 10 years, 20 years, you know.
Same happened to me.
Yeah.
Exact same happened to me. Last year, I was in Marbella, right? And I went broke. I lost, like, all my money. You remember this? I was living, like, I was eating, like, a pot noodle per day to survive.
The ramen days.
Yeah. Not good.
And actually, can I interject? Keep in mind, we didn't go broke from, like, you know, living in a big mansion or whatever. we were sharing a 1-bed apartment between the three of us. We didn't even have a dishwasher.
Yeah.
The window fell off. There was no door handle on the toilet. This place was terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. But basically what happened is I trusted this guy. Let me start that again. I trusted this guy. I was having meetings with him, and he was telling me to invest into this thing that was going to make me... I'm not going to say what it is now because people might know, but basically I was told that I'd get a fantastic return on investment. I'd make back my investment money in one day. I believed it. This guy had me fooled. I thought I could trust him. Clearly not. So I was like, fine. So I invested a lot of money. I literally could have bought a nice car for myself. I could have got something... I could have treated myself, let's just say that. And I invested all my money. Next thing you know, I lost it all. Lost literally all that money. And I remember being in Marbella, and thank God it was the last few days I was here. It was the last few days that I was there. I was walking down a road, and there was this homeless guy, and he was like, can I have money? I was like, brother, I'm in the same position as you right now. I was like, trust me. But I had like a tenner in my pocket. It was like my last bit of money, and I did buy him something. And then he was like, oh, can I get this as well? I was like, no, trust me. I was like, I'm trying to survive out here too now, man. So, I mean, it wasn't good, but things like that, like failures like this in business, I think it's so normal. And as you said, it is better to fail now than in 10 years' time, than in 20 years' time. So I'd much rather be hit with all these failures, be hit with these lessons, lose my money now, go bankrupt. I'd rather all this shit happens now than 20 years' time, you know? At the end of the day, all this shit that's going on now, this is just literally what's morphing us for the future. That's why we're going to be successful in business.
I got to read what I wrote last night. Didn't know it was going to go there, but you know, this has kind of been the theme that before every episode. Now, this episode's very different. This is the first time we've got cameras on, doing an interview with two people. Closest I've done was doing some phone interviews with single guests at a time. So this is kind of a big shift for this show. But in sticking to the theme, last night I couldn't sleep. I don't sleep much as it is. I tend to sleep in 2-hour bursts. And it's largely because I have to go to the bathroom every 2 hours. You know, part of the way my Crohn's works, on an average day, I got to shit 8 to 12 times every day of my life. You know, usually by 7 a.m. I've gone 6, 7 times. And so this is kind of, my body over time has adjusted. I used to fight it. I used to try and go back to sleep and try and do this, try and do that, until one day I realized, no, you actually are at optimum when you sleep less than 6 hours. And you do it in 2-3 bursts, you know. You work with what you got. But so last night, you know, I know we're supposed to be here at 9. I know I'm going to wake up with stomach problems. I just know it. You know, anytime I got something big to do, whether it's take a trip, whether it's do whatever, inevitably I wake up feeling like I'm pregnant with a watermelon inside of me.
Yeah.
You know, I just is what it is. So what do? I write. And in the spirit of what we're talking about, it's just kind of remarkable just how relevant this is. I spent my life chasing the sun to be burned by its embrace. Couldn't see what was in front of me, too obsessed with making chase. For all the wrong reasons, I did all of the wrong things and bore the full weight of the burden that misguided choices bring. But pain will teach us lessons that we never will forget. Gamblers never walk away after winning their last bet. Usually it takes a tumble to the bottom of the rock where the fall becomes so painful that it surely has to stop. And for those of us who rise and start climbing right back up, the destination becomes so motivating that it fills half-empty cups. And any fall that comes thereafter will never offer greater threat than the one that was survived, the only one you won't forget. With a growing strength and knowledge, soon resilience is born. And then appreciation grows out of scars of scorn. Transformation is as unforgettable as it is incredible. Our greatest woes are as rewarding as they are unforgettable.
Damn.
Messed up that last line. It was transformation is as uncomfortable as it is incredible. Our greatest woes are as rewarding as they are unforgettable.
Love that.
But it's just funny how the things that kind of come to mind are all, and this is what I always say about knowing that there's no chance encounters. And part of what's so beautiful about living a purposeful life is that when you know you're living a life of purpose, a lot of the doubts peel away.
Yeah.
A lot of the things, you start to become very certain that it's not happening to us. It is all happening for us. Even the things that present in the moment as some of the darkest tragedies you could possibly imagine often will reveal to be the greatest blessings that ever occurred in your life. It's on you to stick with the game. It's on you to keep your eyes open. And it's on you to recognize what's right in front of you. Think of the phrase, stop and smell the roses. And it's so important to do it. Going from a place like the U.S. to a place like Bali, I noticed something very interesting, and it's that seems to be that people who grow up on an island have the innate ability to be in the present moment. So much so that they have a hard time looking past it. Whereas people from mainline cultures are so plagued by the past that it's impacting the future. And getting to the present moment is a matter of exercise. It's difficult. As you start to become aware of the two, because obviously past, present, future are all relevant. They all matter. Your past shouldn't form your future. It should impact your present and guide those moments to your future. And as you become aware of this and you start to become willing to recognize it all, this comes from me. There's only one question I've asked and gotten the same answer to every time I've asked it to every human being on the planet. Only one. And that question is hindsight 2020? I challenge you to find somebody who would say no to that. But what's comical is, if you can say that, what else has to be true? It was all there for you to see. You were just walking around with your fucking eyes closed.
I'd never thought of it like that. How powerful that is, that hindsight is always 2020. It was there for you to see at the time.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it was chosen to be ignored.
That's why I say, all your wildest dreams, if you're living a life, if you're in a dark place, the only thing that needs to change is your perspective. On a drop of a dime, you might make a decision one day that just sets in line a course of action that was always bound to happen. That's what happened to me just 10 days ago. My wife sent me a clip that I've become obsessed with. And it's not too long ago, an artist named Jelly Roll. If you're not familiar, he just blew up on the American scene. And I'll probably plug in the clip here if I had the opportunity, but I'll summarize what he said. And he said, there is something wildly poetic about a 39-year-old artist winning New Artist of the Year. And he said, I'm here to tell you to keep going. I'm here to tell you to chase your dreams, that the windshield is bigger than a rear view for a reason, because what's behind you is so much less important than what's in front of you. And man, that shit put tears in my eyes. Relevant that I'm also 39 years old and that I had also given up on the dream. and was going to revert back to my soul-sucking businesses that were driven by money. You know, not to say I'm not thankful for those businesses, because they've given me the opportunity to do something like this show and not have to think about money, and to self-fund and self-produce, and to just not even, I still haven't put a single thought into where this is going. The only dream, I guess, is to find a way to amplify the message. You know, whether that be selling to Spotify or whatever. The goal was never the money. The goal was reaching a bigger audience.
Yeah. Making an impact.
Making an impact. You know.
And that's the most important thing, because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, like when you're being buried, you're on your deathbed. Sorry, when you're on your deathbed, like money doesn't matter, like possessions don't matter, none of it matters. The only thing that matters is how you make people feel at the end of the day, and that obviously has a correlation with the impact that you have on people. So I mean, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. How can you impact people? How can you change people's lives? How can you make people feel good about themselves?
Yeah,
that's the most important.
I mean, I'd expand on that with my favorite verse from the Bible. It's in the Gospel according to Matthew, when Jesus is, you know, saying the Sermon on the Mount, speaking to his followers, and describing his kingdom, describing the kingdom of heaven. And he said something that I really had to think about. He said, the meek will inherit the world. That's, you know, I'm not sure, I think Matthew chapter 4. And I thought, the meek will inherit the world, that doesn't make any sense. So I looked up what the definition of meek was. You look up, meek is like a weak person, whatever. And I'm like, so how does this make sense? You know, you think a kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, you know, you want strong, you know, strong people. And it's going to be inherited by the meek. What I grew to understand what that means is that there is no point in being the richest man in the graveyard. You want to be the guy that left it all out there on the dance floor. You want to be the guy that gave as much as they possibly could. You want to be meek in the grave, you know. And that really, changed the way I looked at everything.
I had the opportunity to have a past life regression a couple years back. A woman I met in a group meditation. Her name was Radhika. I met her through Ravi Walsh, who was really the pillar. Ravi was on the first couple episodes. He was really the person who introduced meditation, Reiki, and sort of this elevated consciousness to me. And through him, I met Radhika. And when Radhika did my past life regression, something very interesting happened at the end of it. I experienced my own funeral twice, which I took to be a premonition, not a regression. And in one case, I could feel everyone above me, and I was just in the ground. And the feeling I got was such a pressure to stay down, that as if everybody there was there to make sure that I was actually gone. And I could tell from this that I had lived a selfish life, and that this was how it ended. And then moments later, I found myself experiencing the same thing, same sensation, only I was in the clouds. And the force holding me up was so much love that I couldn't even go back down. And I just got to experience what that felt like. And in that moment, I realized that nothing else was relevant. Not the suit the man was buried in, not the car that took him to the funeral, not the color or the size of the casket. None of it mattered. None of it mattered. What was left was the impact you had on other people, and obviously the impact they were going to have on other people. And that's what true legacy really was. And it was something I'll never forget. Something I'll never forget.
It's a scary feeling to think that, you know, there's a possibility that one day you could be gone, and you could be sitting there in your hospital bed, taking your last breaths, and your loved ones around you are watching this happen and thinking, thank God, you know, with a sigh of relief.
Can you imagine?
That you're gone, you know? If that doesn't galvanize you into helping others, I don't know what will, you know?
There's one other thing I want to... It's a story I don't tell often, but given, you know, in the spirit of mental health, and, you know, talked about suicide, and I talked about how I had come to that dark place. And for anybody who's struggling with self-love, I'd offer you a tool that happened to me in the form of a vision. On my darkest night of the soul, I was so overwhelmed and so consumed by the thought of giving up, by the burning desire to give up, to free myself from any further pain that I'd been experiencing. And suddenly, I'm sitting in this room and I look up, and just like I'm staring at you right now, I see a man there. I see an old man. As I'm staring at him, I start to realize that man is me. And at a moment I was convinced that I hated myself and that I didn't have anything left to live for, it became very clear to me that I needed to be able to hate that man across the room, walk up, and snatch the life out of him. And the moment that I started seeing my future self as a real human, I realized that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I realized that, I love him just like I love everybody else. And it became a mechanism by which I would find and remind myself of the self-love that I have, even at the moments when I doubted it or couldn't feel it or felt the most detached from it. For anybody who's struggling with these kind of feelings, just keep in mind, this too shall pass, to take from Tom Hanks, man. You know, it all passes. Don't take permanent actions based on temporary feelings or circumstances, because you might be in that blessing that presents as a tragedy. And it all just might be a simple move away from turning into your wildest dreams, your wildest fantasy, and your most beautiful self, your most beautiful moment.
Diamonds are made under pressure.
That's it.
That's one big thing. That's when diamonds are made under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like before you elevate in life, I feel like God tests you. That's what I think. Like any time that I'm going through something, I always think to myself, right, I'm going through something now, that means something really good is about to happen in my life. You know, this is a test from God. And once you go in with that perspective, like God's plan, you start to understand things a bit better. You understand why these things are happening to you. And from there, you have a better perspective towards it, rather than just, looking at everything with anger. You start to view things as love, with love.
There's an Instagram video of a Buddhist monk who's become pretty popular. And why it's relevant is because when I was here last time, I was struggling. At this time, my daughter had decided that she didn't want to live with me anymore. At the time, her mom and I had an equal split. And then suddenly, and shockingly to me, she just decided she wanted to go live with mom. And I was so blindsided because we didn't have a fight or anything like that. And all of a sudden, I started feeling like I was just the bad guy and kind of hearing things. And I was here in Bali, and I was crying fucking every day.
Of course.
I was just so hurt. And one of my followers on Instagram sends me this damn video. And the guy goes, in life, when you see something, you want it. It's real important not to pull it close to you, because all it's going to do is you're going to give it all the fuel to go away. And same, if you try to avoid it, you're just going to give it the force to hit you in the head. So everything swings on a pendulum. It's about knowing that's happening and having your expectations,
Wow.
And it was, that's how the universe works, right? It was a perfect message for me at the perfect moment to help me get through something really difficult, just something of remarkable thing. And that's what that phrase, this too shall pass, comes to mean. And it's the same what you're talking about. Because when you're taking a hit, if you can really, really own and know that, all right, that really hurt, I must be in for something awesome.
Yeah.
Because it really is true. It really is true. But only if you let it be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comfort in it as well. It's like, when something happens to you, that's the worst thing that's happened to you to date. It can't happen again. Or you're gonna face it. Next time, it's gonna be a lot easier. And when I suffer in my own life, I thank God, because He's teaching me something. He loves me,
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes a good time so fucking good,
Yeah, that's it.
When you've had a negative experience, that's what makes that's what makes you really enjoy the good times. Because if every day was good, if every day was full of blessings, then they wouldn't be that good, would they? They wouldn't be called blessings.
That's right. That's
We
right.
need the negative.
It's always darkest before the dawn, just like every yin yang.
Yeah.
You can't recognize evil without good. You can't recognize good without evil, pain without pleasure, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so owning it, being grateful for it. Wow. I mean, I can tell you this. It's when you really, really, really get it, it is the most freeing thing you could possibly hope for.
Yeah.
Especially when, whether you're talking to people who are aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start something and are terrified to take the risk, people who, maybe they hate those golden handcuffs, but they feel dependent on them and they're too afraid to free themselves of it. Somebody who's stuck in a toxic relationship and is too afraid to change. There's so many different circumstances where it appeals, but a little bit of faith can go a long way. And, I use that term. Obviously, we talk about our religions are all different. And whatever your faith is to you, the point is in having faith that things will turn, even if it's just faith in yourself or faith in...
Because we all have faith in something.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, have you heard of the region beta paradox?
I haven't.
No, it sort of sums up what you were saying there. Take somebody who is in an abusive relationship, or they're in a terrible position. They're in a job they absolutely hate. You might look at that on the surface as why this guy's or girl is in a really bad place. However, for that person, at least it's so bad that they are going to force themselves to get out of it. Say this relationship is so bad, I have to run away. I have to go across the country. Or this job is so bad, I have to quit and learn to paint like I always have wanted to. Compare that to the person that's in a passable situation, and it might be someone you pass every day on the street. No one pays attention to you. Say, yeah, my job's okay. Yeah, my girlfriend, she, I don't know, she's fine. I don't really love her, but, it's cool, it's passable. Who's in a worse position, The guy who's really, really suffered and came out the other end? The guy that's just there passing. And their situation is not bad enough to really push them to get out of it.
Yeah.
So the paradox states that sometimes really, really terrible things happening to us can be hugely beneficial.
Absolutely.
Because you may never have gotten out of that situation otherwise.
Comfort can be the most uncomfortable thing on the planet. Comfort leads to complacency. Complacency leads to the death of your dreams and aspirations.
Yeah.
And that's why I always go back to that. All good things come from discomfort, because, and also when I was talking about being motivated by the uncomfortable situations, using them as a compass, using it as to know, what am I supposed to do here? Well, I can tell you this: if there's an easy way and a hard way, I don't need to say anymore.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I don't know if there's anything else stirring in mind, but
I think that's a great place to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you both on.
Thank you so much, brother.
Even more so to meet you guys.
Yeah.
And you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I've
you.
never been on a podcast like this in my life.
Yeah.
Really. I've been on a few podcasts now, and it's just been stupidest fucking questions ever. This is being a proper meaningful conversation. It doesn't feel like a podcast. It feels like, I don't know, there's no words to describe it really, is there?
Yeah.
It's just a real conversation.
I really hope Sean and I have connected with some of maybe the younger viewers as well. Hopefully some of the older. I know we have limited knowledge and wisdom, but I hope that we've each maybe even reached one person who has wanted to take a risk and push the boat out a bit. It's definitely worth it. We're reaping the rewards now.
Yeah, and one thing I will say, and I'm going to look into this camera right here, so turn that camera to me, right? One thing I will say, okay, if you're out there and you have a goal, okay? I was once that kid that was insecure, that was bullied, that went through shit, and I was led to believe that I would never, ever get anywhere in life. As soon as I dismissed all that, and as soon as I set a goal, started working day in and day out to achieve that, knowing that knowing that my future self will thank me for this, that is when my life changed. Do not worry about other people's opinions. Focus on what you want to do, because at the end of the day, if you have a purpose, if you're working towards something on a daily basis, that's truly what's going to make you happy. And I promise you that. Thank you
For anybody, if you guys are interested, feel free to reach out through the show. bgir.me is the website. You can hit us on Spotify. You can hit us on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be. We'll post all the links. But you're never alone. You just think you are. Until next time, guys, this is the brokest guy in the room. Endless love and gratitude.
See you all.
Namaste.
Take care.